Hello and welcome. My name is Roger Quayle, and you are listening to My Life in the Mosh of Ghosts. Hello and welcome back to My Life in the Mosh of Ghosts with me, your host, Roger Quayle, and thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about Vice Versa, who started out on the fringe of the Sheffield scene, somewhat unfancied, somewhat unfashionable, but within 2 years became one of the most important bands in the UK as they mutated from Vice Versa into ABC. So here we go, it's 2 nights with Vice Versa at the Blitz Club on the 1st of April and the 6th of May 1980.
Someone said to me the other day,
Relates Judd.
you know, the trouble with Sheffield is, it's just a one-eyed raincoat town.
Brothers in rhythm in the band, we've bumped into each other outside W. Hartley Seed, Sheffield's book retailer of note. Me killing time before yet another job interview, Judd on his way down West Street to sign on. I'm wearing my hideous bottle green interview suit, its lapels wide enough to land a jumbo on, with flares flappy enough to reupholster economy class. Clad in dyed black combats, scuffed monkey boots and fashionably knackered leather jacket, Judd is kind enough not to comment on my man at CNA apparel.
What are you up to, Rog?
There's a book in there that I want, but I haven't got the money.
Who's it by?
Émile Zola, L'Assommoir.
Tell you what, I'll go in and nick it for you, and then you can give me half the cover price.
Nah. You know what? You're alright, Judd. Stephen Judd Turner. Bass player. Petty pilferer. Walking chemistry set. And Iggy Pop look-alike. Described by NMX Fanzine with uncanny accuracy as a friendly hard man. He's a good man to be on the same side as. And there's a kernel of truth in his observation about our town. The long grey raincoat and floppy forelock has become visual shorthand for serious musician from Sheffield. Enough for South Yorkshire to be renamed Gaberdeenshire and start its own fringe festival. Since Cabaret Voltaire and the Human League sailed the good ship Revox into the uncharted waters at the periphery of pop, with just the steady pulse of a drum machine for their soundings, a motley flotilla of bands have followed in their tempestuous wake. Inevitably, not all of them with the same flair for musical and visual innovation. So for every I'm So Hollow or Vendino pact, there are 3 cardboard criminals or stranger than fictions. Salon Graph are outflanked by the serried ranks of shy tots and their ilk. Post-punk with a slow puncture, new waving but drowning. One band determined to escape the Ganex Annex is Vice Versa. I'm a fan, having bought their debut Music 4 EP from Revolution Records last year. Since then, they've shrugged off the human non-league jibes from the local hipsters to emerge with their own take on the drummerless trio. Also, unlike so many local bands who spend endless nights in the Hallamshire mulling over what might happen, Vice Versa have a plan. Better still, they have a manifesto. And here, to tell you about the manifesto, is co-founder Mark White. Over to you, Mark.
Back in the Vice Versa days, myself, Stephen Singleton and Martin Fry used to really love the art manifestos that people like the Dadaists and Surrealists did. And this is what we came up with. The use of prepared tape montages and pre-sound in performance allows us space to exploit kinetics and transmit electronic dance beat music. The aim being to provide a soundtrack to the second industrial revolution. The method, extending the miniaturization policy to ultimately become the first attaché case commuter band. Wow. Now, I think that needs translating a bit. It really meant that what we did often is record things that really actually at that time you couldn't physically get all the synthesizers and beatboxers working in sync. So the bits we couldn't, we just recorded, and we just had it on a cassette. Used that playback. All the singing was live. Martin and I did most of the singing, but it was we wanted to do it. I really liked the way sort of Mick Jones in The Clash chimed in, and he didn't really have that good a voice, but it was good for feeling. So that's what we did, and it actually meant we could make everything so small that we could travel to the gig on the train, just in a little case. So that's what we did when we played in Nottingham, Derby, even in London sometimes. The first attaché case commuter band. Wow.
Mark, with co-founder Stephen Singleton, have started their own label, Neutron Records, to release their music. And I've got to know them a little. Two T-Rex fans who understand that with pop, the curves on the bottle are as important as the fizz inside. Hence, the debut release by these budding Berry Gordies comes in an elaborate fold-out poster sleeve. And their next release on Neutron is a 4-track EP which showcases a quartet of local bands. I'm So Hollow, Clock DVA, my old school pals the Stuntkites, and vice versa themselves. Mark and Stephen have recently been joined by Martin Fry, who I've got to know reasonably well through Clock DVA. Martin is good company, genial, lanky, and forever cloaked in an enormous leather coat, which appears to have last seen service in the cockpit of a Sopwith Camel. He's generous too, lending me the first albums by The Doors and Talking Heads, within an hour of our first meeting. A fanzine writer himself, having initially gone along to interview vice versa, he's ended up joining the band. The first time I see this lineup live is at my beloved Blitz club. It's been a patchy spring season so far upstairs at the George IV. The brooding Comsat Angels are worth seeing for the towering Independence Day alone, while Artery entertain and infuriate in equal measures. Mick Fiddler stealing the show with his saucer-eyed scatterbrain charm. Charlie Collins and I are supporting vice versa. We are billed as the Clock Duo. Charlie is the bearded, avuncular saxophonist in Clock DVA, having joined shortly after me. In a band that sometimes resembles the research and development division of a big pharma company, Charlie's addictions to Guinness, Test cricket and free jazz seem more appealing to me, and so I happily enter his orbit. So out go my Bebop Deluxe and Pink Floyd albums, and in comes Ornette Coleman and the Art Ensemble of Chicago. We've prepared a 20-minute piece for reeds, percussion and effects, and we unleash this two-headed hydra of wonky skronk onto an unsuspecting, slightly bemused Blitz Club crowd, who aren't sure if it's part of some extended April Fool's Day prank. An In at the Deep End tour with Virgin New Wave hopefuls Cowboys International has given vice versa some confidence, enabling them to get their band in a briefcase modus operandi down pat. Korg, Wasp and 3 mics. Frontman Mark White is centre stage on his 18th birthday, a hectic collision of excitement and nervous energy. His gyroscopic swivel dance, one part battling tops, one part young soul rebel. To his right, Stephen bounces on an invisible trampoline, threatening his synth with karate chops, occasionally worrying his alto sax with some splenetic goose-chasing flurries of sound. Across the stage, Martin swats away at a bad-tempered wasp, while he goes full Wigan Casino from the waist down. The Korg should be sponsored by JCB. It's doing all the heavy lifting here. The Powerball kick drum, as urgent as a heart transplant in transit, pumps away relentlessly as the eager trio ratchet up the racket. Vice versa understand the sheer primitive joy of a shouted cop chorus. Che Guevara, Che Guevara, Che Guevara in the glitter beat My Idol, or the righteous yelps of Soul Power in the Northern Soul tribute Democratic Dance Beat. The switchblade menace of Still Yagi, celebrating Russian teddy boys, changes the mood, but still manages to gouge itself into the memory with its multiple rebel gang hooks. The ranch-themed room is packed to near capacity, boys dressed by Bernardos, girls clad in A-line hand-me-downs. Tomorrow, the band will be back at work, dead-end drudgery at the gas board and bachelor's foods. The persistent buzzing in their ears, the only souvenir of a memorable gig. I see Vice Versa again, just 5 weeks later, at the same venue. Dutch electronic band Mini-Pops failed to turn up, so promoter Disco John asks the trio to fill the slot. And while Tumbleweed doesn't quite careen across the dance floor at our little home on the range on Infirmary Road, it's a quiet enough night, with only the most dedicated prairie dogs and Texas roses in attendance. Second time seeing them, and Vice Versa's ultra-catchy songs are starting to stick in my memory. They are fully committed, lost in joyful reverie, as they hammer out their fashion icon tribute, modern as in Mary Quant, the more you see, the more you want. They close with a song called Jazz Drugs, another fast-moving Polaroid snapshot of a stylish scene or movement, which is fast becoming their trademark. Under Charlie's tutelage, the sound and the look of new heroes like John Coltrane and Archie Shepp is influencing my worldview, and the song's lyrics resonate with me. No jugular riff can ever explain the sound of a song with a jazz refrain. Spool the reel on a couple of months, and Clock DVA and Vice Versa are sharing the bill at the Moonlight Club in London. We're 9 young men in transit in a transit van, inside which John Fox's hit Underpass is refashioned with irreverent glee as Underpants. Underpass! Apart from a minor squabble about who plays first, in which we prevail as there's more of us with more gear, so Vice Versa opened the show. It's an excellent night. Punk deity Helen of Troy has been spotted, and rumour has it that Paul Morley from the NME is reviewing the gig. Much later on, we arrive at Toddington Services on the M1 for the ritual beans on toast, mug of coffee and Space Invaders, all under the curious gaze of HGV truckers. It's a placid August night, and back outside, on the steps, amongst the concrete flower beds strewn with fag butts, the Vice Versa lads put on a little show. It's Martin out front, Mark and Stephen side by side, shadowing him, and they break into the chorus of Tracks of My Tears, complete with soft shoe shimmy dips and elegant swaying arms.
What do you think, lads?
We're nonplussed, not fussed.
We're going to get sharp suits, cool moves, And we're going to call it ABC.
Yeah, right. Come on, you lot. Get back in the van. And the rest is history. Thank you for listening to My Life in the Mosh of Ghosts. Thank you to Brent Sharp for the guest voice, and very special thanks to Mark White. Join me again next time for another episode from My Life in the Mosh of Ghosts. This is Roger Quayle saying thank you and bye bye.